So, Star Citizen Alpha 4.6 is going to introduce a new narrative that will start with the Clean the Air event, in which players are going to have to gather resources and take part of some actions in an effort to prevent Lefki from being infected by a mold that threatens the well-being of its inhabitants. Since we seem to be having a patch every month, I would suspect the event to last for at least 2 months, since that is the story arc A for 2026, but CIG also want to run a B arc in parallel, so I would suspect that that B arc would be introduced during the month of February. As of right now, we have no idea about what the B arc is going to be, but I suspect that it will have something to do with a Shattered Blade faction that we can encounter in the QB stations when we do the Vandal Tech Smuggler missions, and maybe it will be one of those follow-up missions that were mentioned at CitizenCon, or maybe it will lead to the introduction of the Rockcracker event, which seems to be the next version of the Hathor sandbox activity. One thing for sure, though, is that eventually it is going to lead to the much anticipated Tunnel Run mission that we saw at the end of last year's CitizenCon. Given its scale, I think that we should expect it to be the climax of that narrative arc, and I cannot wait to try it out with everyone at the Red Club. It's going to be epic, especially when using the Beam Eye Tracker, which is the sponsor of today's video and only costs $30. More info in the description. Also, if you want to join us at the Red Club, you will find the link in the description as well. But let's go back to the A narrative arc, which is therefore debuting with patch Alpha 4.6 in January. The way I see it is that it will eventually lead us to the municipal works of Lefki, which is probably where the mystery originates. This part would then arrive 2 months after the current patch and would correspond to Alpha 4.8, which would introduce instance gameplay at the same time. And since CIG like to release dungeons in parts, like they did with, for example, the ASD facilities, it's entirely possible that the part which would reveal the mystery behind the mold would also be unlocked 2 months later for Alpha 4.10, which would be in May. From there, anything is possible, but I have developed a little theory of my own that I am going to share with you. I think that it would be revealed that the UEE would be behind the attempt to relocate the population to Lefki so that they could take control of Nyx 1 for themselves. What would follow 2 months later for Alpha 4.12 in July would be an open war between the UEE and the People's Alliance for the control of Nyx. Not only would that be a perfect opportunity for players to fight against other players in epic PvP battles, but I also think that portraying the UEE as the aggressors against the beloved People's Alliance would ensure that most players would side with them, therefore guaranteeing their victory and their control over Nyx 1 and the rest of the system. Perhaps this could even coincide with the release of dynamic server meshing, which would allow for massive battles to happen without the performance drops that we are seeing right now when large groups of players are gathering together. In the aftermath, we could imagine Emperor Addison horrified by the situation and the people in charge of the UEE operation brought to justice, which would allow the UEE to save face in the process. Then, with Alpha 4.14 in September, CIG could finally open colonization of Nyx 1 by the People's Alliance, who would have realized that staying on Lefki alone would pose serious survival threats. I imagine this being another resource drive event, which would determine the kind of NPC outpost that would be built in order to kickstart a local economy. The next 2-month period would then give CIG enough time for CitizenCon to happen, and then announce the release of Genesis along with base building for a Star Citizen Alpha 4.16 release in November. Of course, that is obviously a very long stretch. The entire theory here is stemming from the upcoming Clean the Air event after all, but we've seen CIG rolling out big features of what seemed to be meaningless events in the past, so it could be the case for this one as well. Another path this narrative could take would be the introduction of crafting. After all, crafting is being tested by EvoCaddies as I am making this video, and we can imagine that the launch of this feature, at least in its basic form, is just a few months away by now. That could give enough time for CIG to build up a narrative which would perhaps be one of the solutions found by the scientific community that would have worked to contain the Molina mold. And we could even imagine that this recipe could have been stolen by a criminal gang. Players would then be tasked to find that recipe and craft the cure themselves. That would, of course, include resource gathering and cargo hauling in addition to the act of crafting itself, but it would be a great way to encourage as many people as possible to try the new game mechanic. So, therefore, there you have it guys, this is what I think could happen following the upcoming Clear the Air event. I think that there are a lot of opportunities for CIG to create compelling events that are going to coincide with the release of upcoming features. Of course, everything mentioned in today's video was just pure theory crafting, again I'm repeating that, right? And it will be interesting to see if these will age like fine wine or like fine milk, and I am sure that some of you will make it a point to remind me so in the comment section down below. As always, I would like to thank my Patreon and YouTube members, including Dr. Frobin, Sokar Tassisius, Ducky Ducker, Shadow Rise and Zero Crusher for their support. If you too like the video, well, a thumbs up is greatly helping with the algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe for more Star Citizen content, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers!